Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Historic Preservation Commission meeting for the City of Ojai for November 8th, 5:02, Thursday. Roll call.
Okay, good evening. Chair Akins.
Here.
Vice Chair Quinn.
Here.
Commissioners McCready.
Here.
Convery. Oh, sorry. Absent. McHatton.
Here.
And DePoit.
Here.
And Commissioner James is also absent.
Okay, thank you very much. If everybody will stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Public communications. Members of the public wishing to address right after they turn off their phones, wishing to address the Historic Preservation Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker card and file it with the secretary. Cards are available in the council chambers lobby. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes unless time is granted by the chair. Speakers should state their name and address for the record and must direct their comments to the chair, not the audience or press. While the Historic Preservation Commission is in session, members of the commission, city staff, and members of the audience are expected to maintain order and decorum and to obey the orders of the chair. Just a sec. Our museum representative, Mark Lewis, just recently, this afternoon, returned from being out of state in a different time zone. So he asked me if I'd share a few things for upcoming for the museum. They are currently in between shows. Their next show will open up on the 16th of November, 1 week from tomorrow at 5:30. That is Trial by Fire. And it is not just talking about the fire of 2017, but also the other important fires that have taken place in 1917, 1945, or 1940s. Sorry, 48, thank you. I didn't get to look at my cheat sheet. I was trying to do it on my phone. 1985 and 2017. So there'll be, the exhibit will cover all of those different fires with many actual items that were touched by the fire in the 2017 fire, other items that have been collected from other fires. So again, November 16th, 5:30 to I think 7:30 for their opening exhibit. Also there that night will be the new book that's going to be debuted at their opening on Saturday. But Friday night, we're going to get a sneak peek at the museum, and so there'll be a new book. It's out in hardcover and softcover. Hardcover book is kind of a tribute, a collectible book, and so they'll be there also. The museum, in conjunction with the City of Ojai Planning Commission, I'm looking at the artwork we have here. Currently, the city and the museum have artwork that's on display from the artist Tom Hardcastle. If you go to the museum, when you come in those front doors and look to the left, we always have a mini display going on in conjunction with the City of Art that's being shared with the city also. And so there's some very impressive, very striking paintings that Tom Hardcastle has done, especially if you're a Marilyn Monroe fan, if I remember right. The other thing that is going on is this is the anniversary of the founding of AARP. And so we have the museum has a mini exhibit that's on the west wall as you come into the main gallery. Some folks may not know that AARP was actually founded here by Ethel Percy Andrus. At that meeting was Jack Fay. Jack Fay is on our walls up here, I think up there. Jack Fay is one of the 4 people that were there. There was Ethel Percy Andrus, Jack Fay as Miss Andrus' attorney, and then the 2 other people who were essentially the insurance people. And Jack Fay, I believe, is the only one that's living. He's the only one that's here in the valley, and so Jack was able to come to that reception that we had. So, and Craig Walker, who is a former member of our Historic Preservation Commission, was asked to put together a book talking about the founding of AARP. That book is for sale in the museum at a whopping price. It's a beautiful book, too, $9.95. I'm the treasurer of the Ojai Valley Museum, so I have kind of two hats on. So those are the different things that Mark asked me to share with everyone. You're welcome. Okay, we'll now move to the consent items, to the minutes of the meeting of October 11th, 2018. Vice Chair Quinn, you had an observation?
Well, I was just wondering if Elise's recommendation for the two future agenda items should have been mentioned in the minutes. Other than that, I have no corrections or comments.
That's a good point, because I think if you look at the future items listed in our packet, they're there, but they should have been captured in the under future agenda items. So perhaps we can get that corrected.
Yeah, I didn't intend them to remain on the future items. I wanted them to be on the agenda.
Oh, I agree, but we're still looking backwards right
Yeah.
at the moment. So the looking forward will be when we get to the future agenda items, and we'll talk about that then. But I think they should be listed. Any other items, questions, changes, suggestions?
Then I move that we approve the minutes as corrected.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any-
Abstain.
Thank you. Yeah, any opposed? I didn't hear any. Okay, so moved. I think somehow I picked up the raspy voice between home and here. Okay, discussion item number 2. This is a sign permit for the business Heavenly Honey Company tasting room. Mr. Connolly, do we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The item before you is a sign permit to go on one of the tenant spaces in the arcade. This would be a hanging sign for Heavenly Honey Company, which I believe is the second tenant space in, close to Signal, at the corner of Signal and Ojai Avenue. This is before you because the arcade is obviously one of the city landmarks, and I did have a couple corrections too I just wanted to make as I was looking through the staff report. On the second page, kind of the middle of the page at the left margin, there's a statement there that just says the sign can extend no more than 5 inches from the face of the storefront. That should be 50 inches, not 5 inches. In case there was any question about that, it would be tough to get a 48-inch sign in a 5-inch space. And one other minor note at the very bottom too, when the under environmental review, it refers to this being a class 11 categorical exemption. That's correct. But that also means the section of CEQA should be 15331 instead of 01, just for consistency's sake. And I did not have a lot of additional to say. I think it was relatively clear between the plans and the staff report. I hope the applicant is here tonight if there are any applicant-related questions, and that would conclude staff's report.
Okay. Any questions for staff before we take public comments?
I have one question. I was walking down the arcade yesterday afternoon, and does the size of this sign, I know it's within the limits, but how does it compare to the size of the, I notice all the signs are different sizes. Is this larger than most of the other sizes, or is it, it's at its maximum size?
Correct.
That it
That's
can be?
correct. For this type of sign, the hanging sign, I believe this is using the area maximum. I think 15 by 48 is what's allowed, so you couldn't go bigger than this. You could go smaller.
So is it, do you think it's bigger than most of the other signs? I'm not complaining, I'm just curious.
You know, I haven't inventoried it, but I would assume it's on the bigger side because you could only go smaller, really,
Okay, thank you.
with what's allowable.
Okay, thank you. We'll now have a public speaker from Barbara Haskins. The notes we,
I do think that you were talking about the size of the sign.
yeah, could you, thank you. Come up to the mic and just say who you are, please. We found that actually that's necessary for the amazing crowd at home that's waiting on every word.
Do you need to press any buttons or am I on?
No, you're on. We don't know how to work the buttons.
Referring to the size of the sign, I have a feeling that I'm Barbara Haskins, I'm sorry, with Heavenly Honey Company.
Thank you.
Yes, so referring to the size of the sign, I think if you look at the sign that the pharmacy has, which is right next door to us, their sign is quite large. I haven't measured it myself, but I know ours isn't gonna be bigger than that, or probably not quite even as big.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, questions on the sign, observations on the sign?
Well, this is
Yes,
a little off,
Commissioner McCatton.
slightly off topic, but I remember a previous meeting when Commissioner Convey noticed that as you're walking down, they were all different heights, and she had asked it to be on a future agenda item, I think, to see if they can all, when you're walking down, they weren't doing this. And I don't know whatever became of that, but I think more than this size, also whether it's up and down, it also would look nice if they were all symmetry going down. Or,
Okay. So well, go to Commissioner Quinn, who has an answer.
I actually was the person that brought it up.
You were,
Yes,
okay,
rather
wasn't
than
sure.
Commissioner Convery. And what I feel is the bottom of the signs should all be 96 inches from the sidewalk. However, and you weren't here, I apologize at the time, but we were told that there's no money for the city to go and have those signs adjusted. So even though right now they do that, because some of the signs are smaller, some of the signs are up here, some of the signs are down here. I think if we just continue with the bottom of the sign exactly, I mean, it says in the ordinance exactly 96 inches from the sidewalk. If we continue with that, that's probably the best we can do unless we come up with some money to fix the signs.
And also, if I could just add, typically you can correct things like that when a permit is before you, like tonight, where you can get it at the 96-inch standard. It's difficult to go back if somebody had something permitted. It's even like the size question. I don't know if years ago the size limitation was different, so somebody could have an approved sign that's larger if the regulations were different at that time. But if anybody's coming before you now, they're obligated to meet what the current guidelines and regulations would say.
Certainly.
And I'm not even speaking to, just so we understand, the size of the sign, but rather that they follow the 96 inch, because since I've been on the commission, several have come in with 92 as their bottom line and was approved by staff, and then we brought up at the meeting, they have to be 96. I mean, it says right on this page in front of it, it has to be 96, and then over here, it says approved at 92. So I'm just saying we need to be aware, if the bottom of the sign, it doesn't really matter what the upper part is doing, if just the bottom of the sign is at the right spot.
Commissioner
I've
McCready.
reviewed the materials as submitted by the applicant and the sign ordinance. It appears to me that it meets all the requirements for color, material, and size, so I would be in favor of approval.
Great, thank you. Commissioner DuPoint, do you have a question?
Wasn't clear, is this one will be 96 inches?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
thank
correct.
you.
Okay, so my question is, who hangs the signs?
That would be up to the property owner, is my understanding, and it's also verification by city staff. If it
Okay,
were
so
to
the
be
property
off,
owner hangs their signs?
That would be my understanding. It would be the private business responsibility. If you know something I don't, I would assume that's there as the applicant that they would be doing it.
Yeah, and the chains are there to hang it on.
Mhm.
So they're just, I believe, attaching to what's existing.
Barbara, could you come up just so we could get that question answered?
So
Barbara, could you answer the question on who hangs the signs?
chains are already existing there, so it's a matter of just, I don't know what the things are called, but it almost looks like a chain link with a little screw part on it that closes it up. And so that's just attached to my sign, that just hangs on the bottom link or whatever link is appropriate for the length, for the sign to hang.
Okay.
So
Yes.
then I guess if the chains are existing, I'm kind of going to beat this idea into the ground. Maybe the sign before was a smaller sign. So if you own, without thinking about it, just attached to that ring, the bottom of the sign may not be 96 inches. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you could just help me out and make sure that the bottom of the sign is 96 inches.
I haven't measured that. I will measure it when we hang it if you'd
Right.
like me to.
Please.
It's my understanding is not to extend any more than.
It says exactly 96 inches.
Conditions of approval.
I gotta find it.
That's, yeah, number one.
Page 1 of 1, conditions of approval on number 1.
Right.
Rigidly suspended to extend no more than 50 inches, right? As it was corrected, from the face of the storefront and the bottom of the sign being 96 inches from the ground. So
Right.
I would assume that it would be 96 inches from the ground. So if I hang it and it's 98, I'll go up. So
Yeah,
it's at
that's all I'm asking,
96, yeah.
because you can see that some other ones, as they hung them, became different.
They're shorter this way,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
so,
So the only thing I would add to that consideration to making them all be the same length is those chains that are hanging there have been there forever. I'm sure you know more than I do how long they've been there. People will have to add on to those chains, and that might not look nice, so that might
Well-
be something to take into consideration, in the overall scheme.
yeah, it sounds like that's not going to happen anyway, even though I'd like to see it happen, but, yeah, so, great.
Necessary.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, very good point. Thank you, Barbara. Seems like we need to have a field trip. Any other questions? No? 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 Anyone want to make a motion then?
I'll move to approve.
Excellent. Second?
I'll second.
Excellent. You want to take a roll call vote for us, Mr. Connolly?
Okay, just make sure I'm getting
Please.
everything again down. Okay, Chair Akins,
Here. Yes.
uh,
Sorry. I was
Vice Chair
looking
Quinn,
again.
Yes.
Commissioners McCready,
Yes.
McHatton,
Yes.
and DePoit.
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Do you have a time frame on when you expect to hang the sign?
Well, I just have to tell them in the morning you've approved it, and they'll make it, so I would assume within the next few days.
Most excellent. We look forward to it. And welcome. I know you've been here for how many months? 2 years.
But this, 2019 is our 40-year anniversary, so it's kind of a fun thing to do going into our 40-year anniversary.
Very
Thank you for having us.
A little historical aside, good friend David Mason, Mr. Ojai, was in that shop at one time. Before and after you went in, I'm not sure how many people he told repeatedly, but he was always saying to me, how could they afford that on honey? I had a hard time with my flower shop. So anyway, we're happy to have you there. Just a little political or a little historical viewpoint. Thank you and welcome. Okay, moving on to item number 3, future agenda items. The first thing going across the top is the Commissioner's Appreciation Dinner. You saw it will be held this year at Sewell Park. That's nice. And reservations have been requested if you plan to attend. Please RSVP with Luis. Historical Presentation Award coming up on November 27th. Jerry Hill came home, so he's at home. Claire says he is truly enjoying being at home after being out of his bed for like almost 8 months, I think, maybe since April, 7 months. So I think that's a great thing. So he does plan on being here on the 27th, so that's very nice. We all look forward to Terry receiving that award, and also to be able to give Terry our appreciation and our love. Other recipients on that are Don Teeting, who received the annual award. I talked with Don, I think, last week. Excuse me, emailed with her. She does plan to attend. I haven't talked to John with Twice Sold Tales, but I will do that. As I said in our meeting yesterday, the letter went out on very nice historic preservation letterhead. Don told me that. I said, oh, send me a picture, because I didn't even know we had letterhead. And so Darwin said that he had seen it before. So a very nice letter has gone out from the mayor to each of the award recipients, and so that was very much appreciated by them. Other future agenda items that we talked about but aren't on the agenda, there were a couple things. One, a design, what do they call? Design for the Westways, for a potential buyer of the Westways, was going to be reviewed in here. That fell out of escrow, and so that's why we're not seeing it tonight. That was mentioned last week. It's most likely being on, or last month, most likely being on the agenda. It wasn't. There were some other things that we requested under future items, and talked with Sherry. Sherry is out this week, and so I will talk to her next week and find out exactly what our scheduling is. I know part of the question mark has to do with our friend over here on the right, Luke, and his time available. They were just concerned of whether you would be able to fit some of these things in to be able to have them for tonight because of your priorities. Elise, did you have other questions that are unanswered on future agenda items?
Saying specifically about some of these items, or?
No, just the scheduling, I
General.
think, just the scheduling.
Yeah.
I know that was a question for both of us when we got that early agenda.
The second aspect that we were wondering about was that you had wanted to review the agenda before it went out.
I did, and again, Sherry is out of the office this week, so I will talk to her next week.
I thought too, for a future agenda item, there may be the ad hoc committee's work on the historic preservation ordinance would be coming back before this group.
Okay, do you want to
before
give, well,
going back.
Sure, can you give us an update on that?
Sure. The ad hoc committee, as three of you who are on that, along with Craig Walker and Councilman Wyrick, have been working on revising the ordinance, and that is now, I think, getting close to its final stages. I don't know if we have a date certain. The review and amending will probably go, say, through the end of the month. But the finished product will be coming back so you can compare what was recommended to council that went to them versus what will be coming out of the ad hoc committee before that returns to council for their decision on the ordinance. So that would be on here. I don't know that it's most likely going to be the January commission is what I would say. So I know there was some discussion at the council meeting on that of getting it finalized initially February, January, but then to late November. It will not be going to council in late November, obviously, because you need to see it first. So I think that would be, again, a fairly important item for you. I know there were several years' work put in on getting the ordinance to its stage when it went to council. So I'm sure you'll want to see the changes of what it was that went versus what will be going back to them.
Yeah, so so basically what we anticipate happening, and again, scheduling that, it would come to the document that will eventually go to the council will come here as kind of a courtesy view, most likely in the HPC meeting in January. That means it should get to us probably the Thursday before the council meeting in January. And what that does is that gives the Historic Preservation Commission the opportunity to review that individually, and then if you have any concerns, to bring those concerns to that city council meeting. It's not for us to review and revise. Us kind of to see, to understand, and then if any questions are brought up, to bring it up to the council meeting. And so,
No, that's correct. That way it's just kind of an advanced look. So you'd be familiar with the document and be able to attend the council meetings fully informed with any comments you may have.
does that sound like a fair representation, Darwin? Yes. Okay. And so Darwin, myself, and Elise are on that committee, along with Luke, Bill Wyrick, re-elected Councilman Wyrick, and Craig Walker. And kudos to a lot of work that Craig and Elise have been doing on that. Okay, the other thing that I didn't see that was on future agenda items, and it may be, well, we have January, February, and March, was the three items that you discussed. That was the three trifolds. One was the historical walking tour, one was the downtown corridor, and the other was the Mills Act. So I would like to see that showing up on our future agenda items.
Is that the discuss brochures on January?
Yes, so that's the three things.
Okay. And then here it says these three items, and then we added a fourth. I don't know if.
The fourth is Matilah Junior High
Right,
School.
But here it says three. I don't know if it matters.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, we haven't, the three items there have been approved by the HBC.
I wasn't sure how you want, just calling attention to it in case you.
Okay, yeah, I'm guessing that's why that's spacing down there, but it's just a guess. But a very good point. So that may be something that we want to put as an agenda item also in early next year, is the Matilah High School, junior high school. I think we're all in agreement. Yes, Commissioner
Is
DuPois?
there going to be a HBC meeting in December?
There generally is, if there's business to take care of.
So are you saying that these items are going to be postponed till January?
Which items?
The idea for the reception and the Matilah Junior High School?
Well, again, it goes back to, I mean, the question is who sets the priority? And that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk to Sherry in dealing with it. Former Chair McCready, can you weigh in on who sets the priorities going forward?
The chair can write the agenda and set the agenda, and if there's enough, if there are enough items, then we have a meeting, and if not, we don't. So it's kind of up to you.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah, that's why I'd requested to go over these. Yeah, I'm all for moving forward as much as we can, so I'm not sure why we couldn't go over them in the meeting on December 14th, although I may be gone babysitting a 4-month-old at that time.
13th?
15th.
Which, yeah, 13th, sorry.
So we're not
Same
allowed to
thing.
discuss the reception at this one. We have to wait till it gets on the agenda just to
Yes.
start discussing it?
To make any decisions? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Mr. Connolly,
Yes.
do you know of any reason why we couldn't move these things? Right now, they don't exactly have the brochure has a date, because we talked about doing that. I suggested doing that at the beginning of next year. And I think we're in agreement with that, because there's a lot of staff time that's going to go in those. Any issue with setting some of these, the Smith-Hobson family reception as a discussion item on December 13th?
I don't see why not. That sounds like that would be something that could go on the 13th.
Great.
So, yeah.
Yes, Chair,
And
or
I-
Vice Chair.
I will definitely not be here for that meeting. So if you're not here and one other person is not, just consideration.
Yes.
It is usually difficult to get a quorum for our December meeting. So that's why they're probably inconsistent.
Yeah, yeah. So they're scheduled, but typically we either haven't had enough business or enough people for a quorum to have a meeting. So if we can, we'll set it for December 13th.
Right, that's the only item I would be aware of for
Okay.
that time. but-
If we're unable to do that, then we'll postpone it till the January meeting. Does that sound good, Elise?
Yes.
I think that's about, I'm all for moving forward,
Yeah.
but I think that's about the best we
It's
can
gonna
do.
take months. I was hoping to have it before the end of the year, but that's not gonna happen.
Welcome to the slow wheels of commissions.
Yeah.
As fast as we try to grease and squeak. Yeah, because, yeah. Okay, any other future agenda items?
Uh,
Yes,
With the-
Commissioner.
With the
DuPois?
junior high school, my intention had been to boost it ahead of the other ones. That was not to put it number 4, but to move it to number 1, is what my original suggestion was in terms of getting a historical report.
Uh-huh.
But you mentioned something about there's no budget or something.
Yeah, so twofold. So in the discussion, if it takes place December 13th or January 10th, the commission could make that decision on reprioritizing that list.
Okay.
Okay? But part of that, the prioritizing on that list came from the council, who suggested their own priorities. And they control the purse. But again, the decision on what we recommend is entirely up to us. The second thing then would be that we would be basically making a recommendation that we'd like to reprioritize this, if in fact we did that. And also that we would like the part of the budget that was allocated to these 3 items be allocated, part of it instead, to Matilaha.
Okay.
So those are the items for us to consider before our next meeting where we discuss this. Yes.
So on the downtown historic core, that's going to cost a lot more than just a single property to get a report done. Am I correct?
Were you thinking of a brochure? Or
No, I mean,
Oh, the historic district?
to do the district.
Yes, that's going to be very expensive.
Yeah, so if we prioritize that as something we want to do, how do the funds work for that? If it's going to cost the same as that as maybe the other 3 combined, are we still going to be able to move forward, or do we have to wait until another year, or how do you see that happening?
I see it happening as we can make a request, we can share our priorities, and it's just a recommendation to the council, and then the council decides.
Okay.
But again, we're basically saying this is what we as a commission on a vote prefer and prioritize. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so. It seems like you're trying to prioritize projects within a budget. So, and which is hard knowing how much money you have too, but I think if you're sort of like one large project versus 3 or 4 individual projects. But I think it is helpful that when you have a discussion with council about that, if you have clear priorities about should money be available for the larger project, for instance, if you saw that as a higher priority, I think it would be good to be on record with that. Versus if you have lesser funds to then break it out, if you could do 3 or all 4 of these or 2 of these, which one is the most important? If you can do one, which one is it?
Right. And I think, again, going back to the financial part, if you could do 1 and 2 or 3, as an example, or, which one would we prioritize just going on that? Just as an example. I didn't want to think I was eliminating number 4. It was just an example.
But I think you're right, is a district is likely a much more costly, lengthier undertaking than individual sites.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't know. The number that comes to mind on a rough guess was like $25,000. And the individual ones are about 5. So again, just a number that comes to my mind that we've
That's why I think
discussed in the past.
The brochure is important, because I think we need to have awareness, community buy-in before we put that on our budget.
I agree, but I think we also have separate budgets. We should have budget amounts in the budget that are stipulated for historical resource reports, and other amounts in the budget that are stipulated for just general functions and for the training that's available in the summer. And that reminds me of the other thing, two other things. So we'll do that when we get to commissioners. Any other future items?
May we get a status update on the historic resource report for the theater? What stages are it's at now and where it's?
Well, the submittal for the RFPs are due on the 19th, so that's what, Monday, the week of Thanksgiving. I'm not aware if we've received any back yet or not, but often things like this come in the last week.
How does it get posted, the job to write the report? How does the city promote the?
I didn't prepare that, so I'm not sure if it's on our website or who we had the outreach go to for the RFQ. I did read it after it had gone out. I can follow up and see how that was out. There must be a link on the city's website. I just have not looked for it, but I would imagine that's where you would start.
I tried to find it the other day. I couldn't find it.
Not on the website?
I just couldn't find it.
No, I believe, but I'm surprised. Like, there should be a link for that.
I thought I had seen it, but I'm not sure. Could be wrong.
We'll definitely check. I mean, typically too, with things such as this, there are, I know, common like planning related websites where consultants check them to respond to proposals and requests for qualifications. American Planning Association, local chapters, especially for things like this that are more regional, I would think you're going to get more regional firms interested. You would typically, if you're not, you may even be contacting them directly, you would put it on websites that they're going to be checking. So, I mean, I can think of several that would jump to mind on that, but I can follow up and let you know via email how that went out. And if it's not on the website, there clearly should be a path to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you could, just as a future agenda item, of course, give us an update on that when we meet again. Okay, commission, any other future agenda items? No? Okay. Planning report. Mr. Connolly, do you have something for us?
I don't think there are any other projects that are coming to mind that really involve the commission. I realize like the bowling alley site's getting talked about from time to time. It's not a landmark, but I see that as something that there hasn't been a lot of activity on that lately to look at. Other projects in the works to come before here, I'm just not thinking of any that would be for the commission's review right now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner comments? Elise, or,
I have a comment.
yes.
The Ojai Day, I thought that we were busy. It was just nonstop. I mean, there was I was with Elise most of the time, and we had just had a constant flow. I was at the table, she was in the jail, I was in the jail, we were just going back and forth. So I was really surprised how consistent the flow was of people, and the community seemed to really enjoy it. So I thought that was a really good event.
Great, thank you. Commissioner DuPois? Yes.
I just wanted to put it out there that November 11th is the 100th anniversary of the armistice for World War I, and it's a really important date to keep in mind. November 11th, 100 years for the World War I armistice. As a historian, I picked up on that.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Quinn?
Well, I'd just like to remind everyone, or tell you for the first time if you don't already know, that this coming weekend, the 10th and the 11th, is the annual Holiday Home Tour, which benefits the Ojai Music Festival, and 4 beautiful homes are on display for the public. So I hope everyone will get a chance to see them.
Do we know which homes, or do we have to wait and buy the
I
brochure?
know which homes, because I have a big part in this whole thing, but we can.
Is it a wait and see? I can't remember.
Well, we don't tell you the addresses, but I can tell you that probably the home that is easily recognizable as Patina Farms. There's books written on that property, and the owners, one is an architect and one is a designer, and they've written books on their designs. And that home has miniature donkeys that you would see in a guest house, and chickens, and it's really fun. And then on top of that, we have one downtown on Matilaha, and one in Saddle Mountain, and one in Rancho Matilaha. And they're all lovely homes, and they'll be available to view.
Great, thank you. And that's this coming Saturday and Sunday?
Yes,
Great.
10th and 11th.
And if people want tickets, is there a website or a location they can go to?
There is a website. You would just go to the Ojai Music Festival website, or you can actually buy your tickets at the house, but if you don't know where the house is, you won't know where to go buy your ticket. But the tickets are available also at the festival office, which is at the corner of Signal and whatever the street is with a tree in the middle of it. I'm not sure, but the tickets are available there too.
Great, thank you very much. Commissioner McCready?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Yes.
After being at the jail on Ojai Day, I guess I sent her an email. There's still, people were so interested in the facts, and there are a couple facts that are still somewhat in question, and I've been pursuing the answers to those. And I just thought it'd be, there's 2 handouts at the table, but I thought just a small little 2 folded brochure giving just the basic facts, and I would be willing to work on that if it was a good idea.
I think that's fabulous. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's always nice if you can hand something historical to somebody that they're going to walk away and read.
There was a lot of interest. People want to know the history. We also, 2 of the people that came to visit us had spent a couple nights there themselves. It was interesting. It was the first time they had gone back in it since then.
I only heard about uncles. That's even better.
One fact that we're trying to figure out is what's the longest somebody stayed in there, and what's his name, Francis, the police?
France.
Not Francis. I can't think of his name.
His last name or first name?
Both. Right?
Well, there was a France who was.
France.
Last name.
There's a video out of him. I don't know if you've seen it, from the 70s.
Not for a while.
Then there's a newspaper article, and he said that some people had stayed in there for up to a year. And they were called trustees. They chose to want to be there because they worked every day out in the parks and such. And they wanted to be at the Ojai jail. They liked it. And they decided to serve their term there.
Mm-hmm.
That he's knew of people who stayed there for a whole year. So it's one fact that we're.
Yeah, it's amazing. First of all, I had no idea this was a jail. And the people that knew it was a jail said, "Oh, I've never been in here before in my life, and I've lived in this city for 40 years." So yeah, it was amazing. My cute little story was there was a couple. They were walking out, and then they were hopping on their bikes going east on the bike trail. You know, they came off the tennis courts. And there's a little guy that was on the back, and he like yelled with joy or something at the jail, "Wee," and I must have said, I did something like, "Wee," you know, to mimic him and that couple ended up turning around and coming back with that little boy and having him check out the jail. And, you know, I was explaining to them that the car belonged to Dwayne Bauer and, you know, giving them all the particulars. And the young man said, "Yeah, I'm his son-in-law." And so that was his grandson, that Dwayne Bauer's grandson, that actually got to be there with the car and then tore the jail.
And
Yes,
by the way, we should get a thank you letter to Dwayne Bauer,
very good.
because he keeps those.
Thank you very much for that. The other thing I noticed was that we have 18 of the little placards, and according to my list, we have 25 landmarks. And so I took pictures before I left, and I was trying to blow them up and compare them. It looked like we have 3 through 20, placards for 3 through 20. So maybe we can make that a kind of an action item for someone to get, to update the placards, and 2 of them look like their numbers were off. So, as you said, if we're gonna pass out a brochure, let's tout the other 7 landmarks. But yeah, for people very, very,
Sharing the jail time with Elise here, it was really interesting to be with somebody who wrote the book on Ojai history, and showing her the date on the plaque is different from the date that she believes it is. And I felt like I broke her, because it was like all of a sudden we're doing emails back and forth, and she just goes into full detective mode, and it's just so great to watch her go through this discovery process of trying to find out exact truth. And I'm just happy to have her on here, because it was really fun to be a part of just the unveiling of it all, and she's still digging in there.
Well, have you seen that video that's out of
It's like the early
France?
80s. It's really
Yes.
funny.
He said the very last person that stayed in that jail was 1978. So that would put that little plaque, excuse me, that's on the side of the building says it was used for 50 years. So that would be true then, if the very last person. So I went to the police station and I asked them if they have documentation of when the last person stayed in there. That's one.
did they? Or they haven't found it
replied.
yet? Oh,
Elise, I have a question for you. The jail, I think prior to last year's Ojai Day, was repainted. And it looks to me in photographs like the jail originally was more white. Is there any way we can find out the correct color for the jail?
I'm not sure, because most photos are black and white, so I'm not sure. It does seem darker than it's ever been. Now it's darker, but
I
what it
don't
originally was,
I don't think it's correct. But I don't know.
was it the same color on the outside as it is on the inside? Because the inside hasn't been repainted, because it's got the graffiti in there going back to the 1960s.
Yeah, now it's almost kind of a, crayon flesh color. I think the color's wrong, but
Okay,
well, next,
I'd like to find out.
next time it gets painted, we should put our 2
and
cents.
therein
in.
lies the mystery, folks. Tune in for the next month's meeting. Okay, any other items that we need to talk about? Yes, did you?
No.
Oh, that wasn't, okay. Cool. We're adjourned. 5:50. Remember, we're still recording until Luke makes his move back there.